The terracotta warriors have been on our list for ages. This is the first time we're actually making it to the site. We're very excited. So let me tell you everything you need to know about it. It's easy to think of China before the Qin dynasty as a chaotic place, a bunch of warring states always fighting each other. And that's true, but not the whole story. One of those states, Qin, managed to conquer the others and unite China for the first time ever. That's why its ruler took the title of the first emperor of China. His name was Qin Shi Huang, but he wasn't born with that name. His birth name was Ying Zheng, and he became the king of Qin at the age of just 13 after his father died. Now he was tutored by a series of ministers when he was young, and one of them was a guy called Li Si. He was a brilliant strategist and politician, and he basically taught the young king how to run a state. And together they turned Qin into the most powerful state of all. Now Qin Shi Huang wasn't the only one to lay claim to being the emperor of China. Several rulers throughout Chinese history have held that title, and some of them even claim to be the first emperors. But if you ask me, nobody did more to deserve it than the man who ended 200 years of endless warfare and brought China under one roof. So let's start at the beginning. Back in 221 BCE, the year he officially became the emperor, the vast lands of China were divided into 7 states that fought each other non-stop. Some of these states had been around for centuries, like Qianlu, which can be traced back to the Western Zhou era. But the major players at the end of the Warring States period were Han, Zhao, Wei, Yan, and yes, Qin. The main reason there was so much fighting was because each state operated pretty much independently. They all had their own kings, their own laws, their own customs, even their own systems of measurement. It was a total mess. What Qin Shi Huang and Li Si realized was that to bring China together, they needed to establish order. Their rivals wouldn't submit to a nice guy. They'd only respect strength. So that's what they got. As you've probably heard, the first step towards tyranny is submission. But don't worry, I haven't gone crazy. I'm not saying that Qin Shi Huang was a benevolent leader. He wasn't. He was quite the opposite. But the fact remains that his military campaigns were key to uniting China. The ruler of Qin led his armies personally, often in disguise, taking part in battles as if he were a general. But he wasn't a soldier. He preferred to strategize from afar. Qin's army used crossbows and the best quality iron weapons, and their infantry wore body armor made of leather. At their peak, they had more than 500,000 troops, but their real advantage was their organization. They had ranks, regulations, and clear lines of command, and it worked. Under the leadership of the emperor and his ministers, Qin crushed their enemies one by one until finally the last of the warring states surrendered. Now, to make sure something like this never happened again, the new emperor imposed sweeping reforms across his empire. His advisors helped him write a single legal code, which was based on strict laws and harsh punishments. In fact, punishment was excessive for nearly everything. If you committed a crime, you might lose your house, your wife, or even your head. That is why criminals were given the choice to either receive their punishment or confess to another crime they had committed. That crime, of course, was usually a bit lighter, and it was called 18 kinds of repentance. At the same time, Qin Shi Huang ordered measurements of weight, length, and volume to be standardized, so trade and communication could flow smoothly from one side of the empire to the other. You might think that having the same units of measurement would be a pretty simple idea. But believe me, in a time before computers and electricity, this was revolutionary. He also issued a single written script for the entire empire. Before this reform, different states used different scripts, which made communication difficult. But now everyone in China, from north to south, could read the same characters. It was such a big deal that the emperor ordered thousands of old texts to be destroyed to get rid of the old scripts. And that's where things start getting controversial. You see, while Qin Shi Huang wanted to impose a single way of thinking across his empire, he didn't want diversity in any other area. Schools of thought, as they were called, were groups of scholars who debated philosophy, ethics, politics, and science. There were dozens of them across China, and they played a huge role in shaping Chinese culture. But the emperor saw them as a threat to his authority. You see, some of them criticized his policies, so he ordered his ministers to arrest their leaders and burn their books. On top of that, he built a huge mausoleum near the capital city of Xi'an. It covers an area of over 40 square miles, and it's filled with treasures. Why? Well, according to Qin Shi Huang, he wanted to prepare for his afterlife. He imagined that after he died, his soul would ride in a carriage pulled by 8 divine horses to the underworld. And to help him on his journey, he assembled an elite guard. These are the terracotta warriors. They were buried alongside the emperor to protect him on his journey to the afterlife. But unlike the emperor, they weren't mummified. Instead, they were crafted from life-size terracotta figures. Every detail was carefully considered, right down to the creases in their clothes. If you look closely, you can see that no 2 warriors are the same. Each has a unique face and armor, even the horses. It's believed that the craftsmen cast hundreds of molds to make all these figures. And they weren't just thrown together in a few months. It took almost a century to complete the site. Work began in 200 BCE and continued through various dynasties until the Western Han. In total, it's estimated that about 700,000 people were involved in the emperor's tomb, including 3,000 officials and 100,000 soldiers. But while the tomb is impressive, most of the workers probably had mixed feelings about it. You see, building a tomb for the emperor was considered an honor, but it also meant hard, dangerous work with low pay. Many died in accidents, and their bodies were buried inside the mountain to ensure that secrets remained buried. That said, Qin Shi Huang certainly deserved a grand mausoleum. After all, he established the first centralized government in Chinese history. He built roads, canals, and aqueducts across the country. He reformed the calendar, reorganized agriculture, and standardized weights and measures. All of these reforms laid the foundation of Chinese civilization for more than 2,000 years. He also encouraged technological innovation. You see, the emperor wanted to keep his empire together, so he commissioned countless inventions. For example, to carry messages faster, he invented a bamboo and would slip, kind of like a postcard. To move large objects, he invented a type of crane. And to calculate the circumference of the earth, he instructed his staff to measure its longest side. Thanks to these efforts, China flourished for decades. But for how long? Sadly, not too long. The thing about Qin Shi Huang was that he was both an innovator and a tyrant. He introduced many necessary changes to unify China, but he also instilled fear across his empire. High taxes, forced labor, and book burnings upset the people. So when the emperor died in 210 BCE, rebellions broke out. His dynasty fell within a few years, and China once again descended into chaos. Today, historians remember Qin Shi Huang as both a visionary and a tyrant, a man who ended centuries of chaos but ruled with fear, a ruler whose dream of unity gave birth to one of the world's greatest civilizations. And thank you for watching. Subscribe to our channel for more stories.